Okay, so hello everybody. Today we have the pleasure to have with us Rajan Monroe and Tianyan Lee in a very interesting and interactive session that will present how the librarians at Singapore Management University have seized the opportunity with all the challenges created with COVID-19 to demonstrate their innovation and creativity by means of repackaging and enhancing the programs to be delivered via online platforms such as Zoom, as you all know, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, as well as embed them in their learning management systems. What we're planning to do today is follow a fire chat approach, which invites an informal conversation between the audience, so you, and the presenter. In that case, our two presenters. So our guest speakers will start with each one of their case studies, and then, as I explained, we'll invite your questions. So the first case study is focusing on work on bite-sized workshops, and the second one is on the Library Peer Advisors project. So in this presentation, the presenters are looking forward to sharing their work with you and reflecting upon the trials and tribulations, and they hope that you will take back with you some practical and transferable ideas for your own working place. But I think it's good time now to present our guests. So I will give you a bit more detail about their backgrounds. I'm very pleased to have our two guest presenters here today with us. So Rajan Munno is Head of Learning and Information Services at Singapore Management University Libraries. Rajan has a double master's degree in Library and Information Management from Sheffield University and Information Studies from University of Natal, South Africa. He has a higher education diploma and specialist diploma in e-learning and instructional design. So Rajan, I should say, is actively involved in local and international library and information professional activities, for example, IFLA activities, and he has international work experiences in different types of libraries in Singapore, United Arab Emirates, and South Africa. So that's very interesting about your background, Rajan. And I'm sure we'll find more about your own work as you go through the presentation. But our second guest speaker, Tianyan Lee, is librarian in the Learning Services team supporting learning, discovery, and engagement through the delivery of a range of services, and particularly with a focus on first-year learning experiences of students. Tianyan leads large-scale programs such as the Library Freshman Orientation program and coordinates information literacy workshops such as the popular bite-sized workshops. And these are the workshops you are presenting today. Tianyan manages the Library Peer Advisors, which is the second case study we are going to look at today. And that involves a team of 7 students who provide peer-to-peer learning programs. Tianyan has a strong service orientation and enjoys faculty and student engagement by being creative and innovative. So thank you everyone for joining our Firechat session today. And now I would like to invite our guest speakers to begin this presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. So good day, dear colleagues, and also good evening for our friends joining in Asia. So before we begin, we'd like to thank OneHe Mindsets, in particular Prof. Dina and Nisa for the opportunity to share, and more importantly, to learn with you today. So we also understand that given technological challenges, we may have some missteps along the way, so we do beg your pardon, and it's a great opportunity to be here. So moving on, I'd like to share with you what our agenda will be like for today. So we'd like to introduce you to Singapore Management University and also SMU Libraries. And we are quite thankful to have our university librarian joining us today, Ms. Bethany Wilkes, in our presentation. We will then take a bit of a deep dive into the first case study, which is bite-sized workshops. And then later we'll move to the Chillax Lounge and have a fireside chat. after which my colleague Chen Yan will take you through the second case study, Library Peer Advisors, and we'll also have a fireside chat. We'd like to perhaps engage you a little bit by proposing to you three big questions. And this is something that we can talk about towards the tail end of the program. We also made the program quite interactive, and also we will get some hands-on later on in the presentation. So we encourage you to use the chat feature and also to explore some of the websites that we would make reference to later on. So allow me to introduce you to Singapore Management University. We're a relatively new institution compared to some of yours. So it was founded in 2000. We're a city campus. And for those of you who had the opportunity to visit Singapore, you'll notice that Singapore is quite small. And again, we are in downtown. The campus is in the Bras Basah area. So the university also focuses on management, social sciences, technology, and the intersections. And we aim to produce leading edge research that has global impact. So our faculty, for those who want some numbers, so we have 376 full-time faculty, and our student population, predominantly undergraduates, around 8,600, and a growing postgraduate portfolio of programs and students, just over 2,000 students as at 2019. So having gotten a little bit of background about SMU, let me take you to the next slide, which introduces you a bit more about the university, the schools, and the research areas. So SMU has 6 schools: School of Accounting, the Lee Kuan Yew School of Business, the School of Law, School of Social Sciences, Schools of Economics, and the School of Information Systems. And each of the schools has different research area focus. So I can also see some colleagues are faculty as well. So in this slide, you'll see that the university has research areas and expertise in certain disciplines as well. So to move on to introducing you a little bit closer to SMU Libraries as we start our journey into the presentation, we'd like to introduce our libraries through a video. And for this, I will ask the help of Prof to get the video going. And while she's doing that, I will do a little bit of an advertorial. And so in the video, which was actually recorded during the COVID period, we had strict social distancing rules in place, and you can also see the creativity of the library team in putting together the video. So enjoy.
Hoping to ace that assignment, but can't figure out where to start? We're here to help. Year after year, students have found one secret in their quest to doing well in assignments, and that secret is research librarians. Here at SMU, we have research librarians who you can speak to help you get started with your research effectively and efficiently. Say hi, everyone.
Hi.
Every school is represented, so make sure you know who your research librarian is and send them an email. I may be getting ahead of myself. Let me quickly show you around. In SMU, we have 2 libraries, the Lee Ka-shing Library and the Kwa Geok Chu Law Library. They're both incredible places, as you are soon to realize. Back to the academics. If you feel an email isn't enough, the librarian can sit down with you for a research consultation. Here, they can help you with things you may not have thought of, like how to plan the scope of your paper before starting research, database demos, and how to get your citations right so that you don't lose sleep over plagiarism. The SMU Library is also digital. Try it. Click on Chat Services, Your question will be answered by an actual human being. You can ask them anything, well, almost anything, okay?
At SMU Libraries, we're here to support you in achieving your academic and personal learning goals. Librarians work in both physical and digital spaces to provide you with the help that you need, when and where you need it. You may meet librarians in your classes, and the libraries also conduct workshops that address skills that you can apply in academic and professional contexts. We hope that SMU Library spaces, both physical and digital, will be spaces where inspiring things happen to cultivate entrepreneurialism, interdisciplinarity, and the creation of knowledge.
So you know a little bit about the library now. Visit us online or in person and keep a lookout for our workshops. We hope we can help you throughout your time here at SMU.
Thank you, Prof. So, dear friends, if you missed traveling, we hope that virtual tour gave you a little bit of a sneak peek of our two beautiful libraries as well. And we do welcome you to visit us when the time is right. So moving on after the introduction of the library, basically, again, some quick facts. We have over 500,000 print and electronic books, 95% of which are electronic resources. We have access to over 80,000 print and electronic journals, and also more than 170 electronic databases or databases. And we do this and offer the service using a team of 38 staff, 23 of whom are professional librarians. So we hope for the first part, you had some background and some contextualization as to what is SMU and also SMU Libraries. We will now move on to the first case study, which is the bite-sized workshops. And I will take you through a series of slides, and we will also discuss further in the fireside chat some of the questions you may have. All right, so many years ago, I developed this information literacy model, which is represented through in a pyramid form, where you can see at the base or at the bottom of the pyramid is library orientation, and then followed by in-class presentations, bite-sized lunchtime programs, and then also research consultation. So these are essentially some of the learning programs that we offer, and we do not have a credit-bearing information literacy course, and we offer mostly one-shot programs in general. So you would also see that we use different pedagogical approaches to actually deliver these programs, and such as blended learning, and also in-class sessions, and again, individual group assistance for the research consultations. So for the bite-sized workshops, how did they actually come about? You may ask that question. So let me give you a little bit about the background and the context here. So the bite-sized workshops came about as a supplement to in-class instruction, and it reaches out to the wider SMU community, because what we realized is that not all faculty partner with the research librarians or subject liaisons. In our case, we call them research librarians. So we thought that there's a large population of other students who may be missing out. So again, we created the bite-sized workshops to supplement these in-class instruction. It is also part of co-curricular learning that equip participants with lifelong learning skills to be future ready as well. Because today employers are looking beyond just academic grades, but what other skills students have. It's also conducted primarily by research librarians and the engagement team. The engagement team is a cross-department group of librarians that essentially curate programs for first-year students. The Bite-Size Workshops is also a collaboration with campus partners. We work with the Center for English Communication, which is essentially like a writing center in your equivalent institution, the Office of Postgraduate Programs, and faculty as well. These bite-sized workshops are offered during Term 1 and Term 2 every academic year. And the duration of the workshops are typically 1 hour and offered on site in the learning labs at the SMU Library traditionally. So we started this program in academic year 2015-2016, and that was phase 1. And we had a humble beginning of 5 workshops, as we said, targeted primarily to students. And we promoted and marketed it as free bite-sized lunchtime workshops. Of course, we didn't offer any lunch because we didn't have any budget. And we did realize that students did put in the comments, where's the lunch? We call it bite-sized lunchtime workshops. So what we also realized was the attendance was low. And then we decided to open it up to the SMU community because we believe that anyone and everyone has an information or a research need. And then we thought, okay, let's maybe expand this and open it up to the SMU community. The workshop offerings and the attendance also started to increase. So this was phase 1, getting off the ground. Phase 2, as we reached a bit of maturity, you can see that we had some tweaks. And we also did a little bit of assessment to see what's working and what's not working. And we rebranded it to focus more on skills, such as research skills, writing skills, working with data or data and metrics, citation management skills, digital literacy, resource literacy, etc. We also promoted it, and the marketing was enhanced, and we had a very catchy subject line: register but don't choke. For friends who are or have been to Singapore, you know the Singaporean tendency of leaving things to keep a place, be it for a meal in the hawker center or the coffee shop, etc. So we actually played on that pun and said, register but don't choke. We also enhanced the program through faculty partnerships and also the centers, and as I mentioned, the postgraduate professional program office as well. We saw a cross-section of attendees and also an increase in the number of workshops. So here, in one workshop, you could get an undergraduate, a postgraduate, and even a staff member or a faculty, depending on their interest, and they would have signed up for that. So this also is a little bit of a snapshot of what the branding was, the makeover that we had. And today, you know, with more visual learners, we kind of said, okay, reduce the text and let's maybe package it differently. So my colleague Moyen gave it a good makeover, and it was quite attractive in that sense. And like all good librarians, we always like to do reviews and take one step back and ask ourselves what's working well, and where can we improve. So the review covered 2 academic years, which we thought is quite decent to look at how we fared, and it was basically 2016, 2017, and then 2017, 2018. And the review questions that we tried to address was, who is attending the workshops? When is it a good time to offer the workshops? Because we used to offer it during lunchtime. What were some of the feedback about the workshop? What are the recommendations to enhance the strategic positioning of the workshops? what resources are required, for example, talent, capacity, capability, and space. What are some of the options to build on the current state to strengthen and sustain the existing program? So in order to actually find answers to these questions, we used the following data points. We looked at the attendance lists, which is registration online, equivalent to Eventbrite. So we kind of looked at all the profile of the participants. We also looked at the post-workshop survey, which is typically a SurveyMonkey questionnaire. We also looked at anecdotal feedback from, for example, the Student Association and the Library Advisory Committee. We also looked at the wider university survey and the library survey, such as InSync and the SMU Wellness Center survey. And we also asked our peers, the research librarians and the ET members who conduct the workshops for their comments as well. And it was quite interesting because the review had quite a lot of recommendations. And I won't go into all the recommendations, but I want to highlight where we found a hook, because again, it's always demonstrating the impact of the library in terms of the stakeholders, etc. So our SMU provost, then Professor Lily Kong, made this statement, which we thought is a good hook to actually tell a story around our bite-sized workshops. So she, to quote her from this graduate survey response that she made, she said, apart from academic curriculum, we prepare our students well for the workforce by equipping them with the knowledge, experience, and skills sought after by employers. SMU students have various opportunities for global exposure, community service, and internships. And these prepare them to become well-rounded individuals and leaders. So we thought that this makes a very good story and link it to the graduate learning outcomes of the students as well. So in this regard, we actually collaborated with the Office of the Dean of Students to recognize out-of-classroom learning hours, excuse me, and we included these workshops in the student transcript as part of their co-curricular activities and offer them e-certificates on demand. So this again adds value to the student who and the participants who actually attend the bite-sized workshops. So this is again in line with employees wanting skills beyond academics and grades as well. So as I mentioned, the bite-sized workshops has evolved significantly. And today, we are also happy to share that we have a dedicated website, and I think Prof has given you the link to the website. And you will see in this discovery learning, which we invite you to explore the website and click on the link. And I'd like you to quickly skim and scan through the list of workshops and type in the chat box what caught your eye and what's your bite. For example, which workshop would you like to attend? So write your comments in the chat box, and perhaps we'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes where you can post your comments and we can read it out. And I think Nisa and Prof are available to help to do the reading. So click on the link and we invite you to explore the library bite-sized workshops link and webpage and type in what caught your eye and which workshop would you be interested in? Wow, Jean, I think thank you for your generous contribution. So somebody said, Jean said, what makes a good infographic sounds interesting. Steve, thank you for your contribution. Image bootcamp look good. Dave, thank you very much. Also, databases, which do I use? I like the idea of increasing literacy of specific databases. Okay, keep it rolling. I'm glad you're actually having fun and toggling between the website and the chat. Ali, write it well. We get a lot of questions about writing. Yes, I think, you know, this is a universal challenge that we all experience, especially with our cohorts year in and year out. And I think sometimes not all our students may be English as their first language. And in this case here at SMU, we have an equivalent to the writing center. George, I like that. Yeah, we have some very creative research librarian colleagues. WTF, I hope you don't have a dirty mind. So it's actually what the fake, all right? So it's a good name. I like your sense of humor. Yes, humor is, laughter is a good medicine as well, Reader's Digest. Emma, that sounds cool. Researching with Google and Wikipedia. Yes, we always try to steer away, but maybe how could we embrace them more efficiently? JR, yes, interesting question. Do you find the 4 to 5 p.m. works well for increasing attendance as opposed to earlier during the day? Yes, again, that was one of the review questions, and I'll elaborate a little bit more, JR, so I'll keep it in the parking lot. Dave, thank you very much. Also, crafting and engaging business report. So this is practical skills. And Katharina, thank you also to say that what caught your eye was introduction to research data management or data management. This is not something we offer, but we anticipate the research office will pick that up. So maybe we'll have some a final minute or two, and you can type your reactions in the chat. And I'm glad to see everyone is having fun identifying what caught your eye and what's your bite. Maybe while we wait for a little bit more responses, to answer JR's question, yes, we did undertake a survey, JR, and we gave students timing, because in SMU, one lecture, I beg your pardon, Jill, is it Jill or JR? Okay, Jill, so I think in SMU, one lecture is actually 3 hours long, and there is no right time because there could be, you know, 3 or 4 so-called teaching blocks. So what we did was we did reschedule the session for 4 to 5 to accommodate most of the postgraduate students who have their lectures later in the evening around 7 o'clock, which is the late session. So to answer your question, Jill, yes, it worked, and we did see an increase in the take-up and attendance for the 4 to 5 session. So moving along, all right. Yeah, so moving along, what I would like to highlight to you is how we actually use Pandemonium, and possibilities to pivot the bite-sized workshops. And in the next slide, we will share with you the amazing take-up rate from what used to be a traditional classroom face-to-face session where you would be constrained with the class size and capacity of the room versus the multiple runs of the workshop, to sessions where we've seen an exponential take-up rate. So I think some of you highlighted the Google and Wikipedia, researching with Google and Wikipedia session. So in this example, my colleague Chen Yang and I taught this particular bite-sized workshop, and we had about 250 students sign up for the workshop on the online platform, and the numbers in red is actually the real attendance. So, we do, anticipate attrition and no-shows, etc. But on the overall, we have seen the bite-sized workshop pivot significantly in terms of the numbers and the attendance as well. So we are quite heartened. Despite the pandemonium, there are a lot of possibilities. And the research librarians are quite gleeful in the sense that they have gotten quite used to delivering online workshops, etc. Because many years ago, the university had already set in place an emergency preparedness teaching and learning initiative, because I think a lot of you know Singapore is in a vulnerable location where we get a lot of haze and stuff like that. So in order to prepare Singapore, and we had the SARS outbreak many years ago, the university actually initiated the EPTL, where faculty would be required to teach and prepare for lessons online, and there would be a week set aside where students would take classes from home. And the library was a pioneer in also rolling out these workshops online then. So our team had that head start in getting ready for online teaching. And we have a great team and great colleagues who are very innovative and creative in their approaches to both face-to-face and online teaching. So I've actually come to the end of the first case study, where I took you on a little bit of a journey by giving you a bit of background, by also sharing with you our evolution and our trials and tribulations of making the bite-sized workshops quite so-called impactful and significant during this time. And it's now time for us to move to the Chillax Lounge, where we will have the fireside chat. Over to you, Prof.
And it's getting chilly here. I think we have a very cloudy, rainy Scotland. For some of you who, some of our participants were writing in the chat area earlier how cold and miserable it is today. But I think it's a great opportunity for a chat and for an online session. And I was really amazed by the wide availability and the diversity of the workshops that you are offering, Rajan, actually. And I'm sure that the audience is really surprised to see some topics that may not always be considered as expected topics, and how closely they are related to business and management, which are really the main directions of your work there. I don't know if the audience has any questions. I mean, I have about 3 questions so far, but I would like really to see if the audience has a question first, and then we move on to my questions. So we do have a question from Jean. If the workshops are recorded, Rajan.
Thank you, Prof, and thank you, Jean, for that question. Yes, they have started being recorded, because as part of the review, Jean, a lot of the feedback that we got then was the students wanted a recording of the workshop. And I think at that time, setting up a video in front of the class, etc., we tried, doing that. But of course, the quality, you needed to slice and splice it, etc., and package it. But today, with the online platforms, they recorded and they also sent to the participants as a learning gift. So in that way, it's a knowledge sharing and knowledge gift that we give back. So to answer your question, Jean, yes, they are recorded for self-directed and self-paced learning later on.
Yes, that's very important, isn't it? These days we are experiencing, and they allow more flexibility as well in that way. We have another question. David is asking, which online platform do you use for the workshops?
Thank you, Dave, for your question. So at SMU, basically, we use WebEx. We also use Zoom, and we also use MS Teams. So what we do, Dave, is we actually leave the choice of the platform to the individual faculty or instructor to choose a medium and a mode which they are most comfortable with. So Chen Yan helps to administer this, so there would be some colleagues who use Zoom because of the breakout rooms, etc., and some may use MS Teams, etc. So depending on the instructional design, lesson plan, and instructional strategies, they would find the most appropriate online platform. But we also use Desire to Learn, which is our learning management system and your Blackboard equivalent.
And Jean is saying, is more of a comment, I like the idea of a knowledge gift. I also like this idea. It's a very nice thing to say. Think of knowledge as a present. And Steve, you are saying we are using Panopto and including quizzes, etc. in the recordings. And the question is, how do the students feel about having to navigate different platforms?
Good question, Steve. And later on, you will hear in Chen Yang's presentation this whole digital transformation and the need for digital literacy. So I won't steal Chen Yang's thunder, but I'm sure you're going to find the answer to this question in Chen Yang's presentation later on. So do stick around and you'll find it there.
Okay, excellent. So Nisa, you have a question as well. You're saying, coming back to your introduction on the information literacy model, is there more significance priority attached to those on top as opposed to the ones listed lower in the hierarchy? So we're referring back to the pyramid. Is this that particular slide?
Yes, Prof. Yeah, and thank you, Nisa, for your question. So I think you are making reference to this. So this model is only alive, and it's only comes to life if it's implemented. So this model or framework actually is an overlay to the 15-week academic term that is in SMU. So at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the base and it's the largest, that typically happens in week 0 and week 1, where we have a lot of library orientation programs. And as the student actually settled down between week 2 and week 3, so you get a lot of the subject librarian or liaison librarians and research librarians, in our case, going in class and working with faculty to teach course-integrated instruction. And this is where we also go into 35 sections of the writing and reasoning program. And then as the students start working on the assignments and projects, they may find a need for a specific subject or topic related. So we offer things like the thematic or bite-sized workshops and programs. And when the term progresses between like week 10 and 13, when it's peak assignment period, you're going to get small group consultations for projects, term papers, etc. I would like to also, just highlight to you that, research consultation can occur anytime, but in terms of being at the apex, what I try to represent here is that it's a just-in-time model rather than a just-in-case model. And I hope that answers your question, Nisa.
Okay, Nisa is an interesting way to provide timely library intervention according to syllabus and term time. Thank you, Nisa, for the comments. We have another question from David, Rajan. David is asking, is there any assessment opportunity to put into practice what the students have learned? Is there pre-assessment so that can be compared to post-workshop? Very interesting question here. It's about how do you assess the learning of the students?
I think this part is something again, because it's out of classroom learning, it's not so-called compulsory, except for one program, which I'll share with you a little bit more, a collaboration that we have with the Office of Postgraduate Programs. Generally, the assessment, Dave, here we're looking at is Kirkpatrick level 1 reaction, where we ask them to complete the feedback, and then the instructors may also conduct things like quizzes, polls, or they may have an activity sheet. So when you're looking at an assessment that actually contributes to a credit or so, it's not directly linked. But when you look at a course such as avoiding plagiarism or citation and presentation, you'll find that this would be a rubric which will be integrated in the assessment for that particular subject. So in this case, Dave, it is out of classroom learning, but where we can find possibilities and potential for assessment, course integrated versus the actual instructors or facilitators conducting their own assessment. This is something, some of the approaches we take. The other thing I mentioned to you is that we work with the Office of Postgraduate Programs, and for them to graduate, the master's students, they have to complete 3 professional development workshops. And what we did was we worked with them to enable them to attend 5 bite-sized workshops, which is equivalent to 1 PDS graduation requirement. So this is the other thing where we've seen an exponential number of students, the postgraduate students, attending the bite-sized workshops to fulfill that 1 PDS requirement for graduation. So when you're looking at, again, finding opportunities for assessment, finding opportunities to integrate it in courses and programs, this has been the approach we've actually taken in a more informal way. I hope that answers your question, Dave.
So Rajan, we have many questions, so I just wonder whether we have time for my question at all, or we should move on. What do you think?
Perhaps we can move on, and we could, because Chen Yang has a very interesting concept, and for our friends who are in the session today, I'm sure you're going to get some innovative ideas from her presentation as well. So, Prof, I would, if you may, we can perhaps pass the time to Chen Yang for her presentation.
Yes, absolutely. And we can leave those questions in the end if there is time. Just a moment that Katrina is saying something. Dave is not quite the same, but in ones that I run, I do a quick true-false quiz at start, at end, so people can identify what gaps they need to fill in the session. So it's nice to actually that you are sharing your different approaches as well. And this is really the value of this session, to get to know what everybody else is doing.
And Prof, I like Katrina's idea, because you have Dave in formative assessment and summative assessment. So for example, you test their pre-knowledge and then post course knowledge. And a lot of my colleagues use interactive tools such as Kahoot, Menti, and also VUCA, etc. So it's this whole digital transformation, digital tools, but in the same way, having an element of assessment in terms of pre-workshop versus post-workshop as well. So thank you, Prof, and thank you, Katrina, for highlighting that.
Okay, excellent. So we're ready now to move on to the next part of the presentation with Chinyan and the library peer advisors then. So I would like to invite Chinyan, who is a librarian in the Learning Services team supporting the learning discovery engagement of students through the delivery of the services that she's going to talk to you about. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Prof, for the introduction. And thank you, Rajan. I think it has been a wonderful presentation so far. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleagues. I'm Jane Yan. It's my great pleasure to be here and meet you all. So next, I'm going to share with you another case study of the Keep Calm and Carry On strategies at SMU Libraries, which is a series of library peer advisor-led initiatives, also in collaboration with a few campus partners, demonstrating the great value and impact of peer-to-peer sharing, learning, and support. So same approach, I will take you through a few slides first, and then we will have a more interactive fireside chat if you have any questions for us. Okay, so let me firstly introduce the SMU Libraries Library Peer Advisor Initiative. Studies have shown that peer-assisted learning is beneficial in providing supportive social networks for students and allows them to learn and acquire knowledge from their peers. We also see this in our libraries, where students tend to approach the student assistants more at the desk. Thus, we came up with this library peer advisor concept in 2019 and recruited 7 students as our library peer advisors, in short, LPAs, with a good representation from different schools, and the project team was set up to initiate this. Our LPA initiative also expands the already existing peer ecosystems in SMU, such as the peer helpers, peer advisors, peer tutors, communication coaches, and career champions. They provide peer-to-peer support by students for students in areas such as citation help, database training, and conducting library tours. Okay, so do you want to know more about them? Here's a 3-minute video clip. It's an extract from the LPA Confessions video. May I get Prof's help to
Yes, of course.
turn on
So
the
as I'm
video?
loading the
Thank you.
video, yes, just to say that we have decided to play only the 3 first minutes of the video. I hope this is okay. The video is around 7 to 8 minutes long, isn't it? Yes. So you'll notice that I'll be stopping this around 3 minutes and something when the second student is talking. Okay, so I'll share that shortly.
Sure, thank you, Prof. So while Prof is sharing the video, let me share with you more about the background. So actually, we tasked the LPAs to self-curate an engaging video, sharing about their own stories.
Okay,
Okay, let's watch the video first.
Of SMU, and in this video we're gonna share a bit of like stories and like some hacks about the SMU libraries, namely Lee Ka-shing Library and Quadroke Chu Library, and we're excited for you to find out more about the library. So in this video, right, how we're gonna do is we're gonna pass a book around, and whoever this book lands on, right, has to tell like an amazing story about the library that they've been through. Okay, all right, let's start. Okay, maybe we start with Derek. Okay, Derek, I'm gonna pass the book to you. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Hi, my name is Derek. So as you can see, I'm the only guy member among this wonderful team of ladies. Okay, so what I'll be sharing with you is about the cool facilities in the library. So personally, I feel that the library facilities are great. In addition to all the ample study spaces available in the library, and also what we call the project rooms. To make it easier for everyone to visualize what is a project room, project rooms are similar to what we call the group study room, but they are equipped with a television display. And these screens come in handy when we are rehearsing for project presentation or having a group discussion. Another cool facility about the library is the investment studio, located on level 3 of the LKS library, which we have terminals installed to access key business databases such as Bloomberg, Econ, and Factsheet, which comes in extremely handy for students who want to major in finance. So to my knowledge, and don't quote me on this, I think the subscription for a Bloomberg license can cost up to 20,000 a year. Please remember to book them in advance if you want to use them. Overall, I think it's a very nice touch by the school and the library to provide us with such essential facilities and expensive databases, all in a conducive and learning environment. Okay, I think that's all for me. I hope we can hear more from my fellow library advisors. I'll pass it back to Constance. Constance.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Constance. Some hacks I have about the library would be maybe during the busiest period, which is the exam period, will be around the week 6 to 7 or the week 13 of school. Yeah, during these periods, like people are usually not doing projects anymore and they're doing more of like self-study. So this period, the library is super packed, right? And imagine every faculty is in the 2 libraries that SMU has, right? And you struggle to find seats, you struggle to see with your friends in general. So my tip would be to wake up early and get to the library by its opening time, which is about 8 a.m. So maybe 7:50 you can actually head over and queue up. There's usually a queue during exam periods. Yeah, so get there early and get a sweet spot, which I would recommend to be on the 4th level near the windows, where there are like kind of like a garden, right, where you can look out into the city with like a stretch of greenery on the windows. So that's the most relaxing spot I know to study at, and you can easily spend 8 to 10 hours there. Yeah, and I think one of the most important things during exam period would be to rest well, like wake up early, but like make sure you sleep early as well. Yes, okay. So now I will pass the book to Joe.
Okay, hi, I'm Joe. So SMU Libraries are really spacious, right? So when I was a freshman, I was totally lost when I entered Lpas library. I was like, wow, where do I start? It has 4 stories, and I wasn't really sure where the printing rooms were, or how to use it, or even how to borrow a book.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for sharing the video. So actually, it's just now we show you a 3-minute video clip. It's an extract from the LPA Confessions video. So we tasked the LPAs to self-curate an engaging video sharing about their own stories and hacks about SMU libraries with their peers. So this is what they have came up with, and each of them share about 1 to 2 tips, and one after another, following the trail of a virtual book that was being passed around on the screen, and it was all filmed on Zoom. So did you like it? Pretty cool, isn't it? So this is one of the LPA-led initiative, and more will be covered in the following section. Okay, so now let's move on to the slides. Okay, so for some of our services, the LPAs were engaged and involved in the design, development, and delivery of the services. So you may wonder how the LPAs were upskilled and prepared for such opportunities. Okay, so the project team adopted a learn, immerse, practice model to develop the LPAs. It starts with the train-the-trainer process, during which librarians pass on the knowledge and skill sets to the LPAs. And next, it is what we call an immersion stage, when the LPAs digest and transfer knowledge into action. Depending on the nature of the tasks, they may be paired up and matched with a librarian mentor. And lastly, when they are more confident and independent in delivering the task, they are given opportunities to perform solos, and their mentors will help them further refine their performance. As you can see, we librarians, we train the LPAs with new skill sets, work with them to curate programs, and guide them toward final delivery of service offerings. So after the introduction, next I'm going to share with you what we have done to turn challenges into opportunities. As we step into a new normal and digital academia came into shape, many activities on our campus were being or had been transformed for a digital context at the moment. So this includes our SMU Freshman Orientation 2020, which was branded as formal FOMO, Freshman Orientation Moves Online, and our information literacy workshops like the bite size Rajan has just shared. And further, while the academic community was quickly trying to upskill themselves, including us librarians, what about our incoming first-year students? Who and what support networks were there to help them navigate the different facets of online learning? This was a challenge that every academic institution might be facing with, including libraries, as we entering a new academic year. And this was also the challenge we took on from our Vice President for undergraduates to champion an initiative to prepare the incoming freshmen and returning students for online learning in Term 1. So as we embark on this new initiative, the LPAs became an integral part in offering students an authentic peer-assisted learning experience. And besides, from our own experience, we noticed that collaboration leads to greater impact. So the new initiative was also well established in partnership with two important departments, the IT department, what we call IITS at SMU, and the Center for Teaching Excellence, in short CTE. So we believe that through our collaborations, no one will be left behind during this shift to digital academia. And next, so here's a roadmap which provides a holistic view of our curated programs and offerings aimed at getting our freshmen and returning students ready for online learning in Term 1. So let me take you through the journey and the LPA's involvement. So the SMU Freshman Orientation 2020 took place in July this year. As part of the Libraries orientation, the LPAs had their first interactions with the freshmen through peer-to-peer sharing during a live briefing. Then before Term 1 began in early August, there was a series of 3 bite-sized workshops branded and promoted as Succeed in Online Learning, led by the LPAs as a means of peer-to-peer learning. And these workshops were offered in 2 rounds, respectively targeted at the freshmen and all other UGs and PGs in the 2 respective rounds. And this was also the major part of the new initiative we took on. After term started, as a spin-off from the workshop series, the LPAs continued offering peer-to-peer support to UGs and PGs via a live chat session in week 2. So during the session, LPAs further addressed questions students had on online learning and using libraries resources. And for longevity and a sustainable self-directed learning experience, a research guide titled Online Learning is Different, as well as the Library Peer Advisor Confessions video were created to further engage and benefit the students. So next, let me take you through some screenshots and details of the programs. So this was the library's live briefing during the SMU Freshman Orientation 2020. A total of 1,600 students attended the briefing. So as you can see from the screenshot, LPAs, they were invited to share about their year 1 experiences with the freshmen and bring awareness to services that are essential to the freshmen, such as the APA citation and other bite-sized workshops, databases, research consultations, libraries facilities and opening hours, and the Ask Library chat service, etc. And this was the Succeed in Online Learning new initiative. So upon our very first task force meeting together with our 2 campus partners, the IT department and Center for Teaching Excellence, we decided to organize a series of workshops similarly to the bite-sized workshops and involve the LPAs to conduct peer-to-peer teaching. And also leveraging on the expertise of our partners, we identified 2 areas of focus. The first being tools and platforms for online learning. Sorry, I will pause for a while because we are having an alert here in our libraries.
Okay, the reality of a live session, so it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Wait, do you need to go, or is it okay for you to carry on?
Yeah, I can carry on now.
Okay,
yeah, the
no
alert
problem.
has passed.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So the first area of focus is tools and platforms for online learning, including eLearn, which is SMU's learning management system, WebEx, Zoom, and Microsoft Teams, as well as Google Apps. And the second area of focus was tips for developing a positive mindset towards online learning, because we thought this was important for students as well. So they were further developed into 3 sessions, as you can see from the slide. And all these 3 sessions were offered in both rounds, one for freshmen and the other for all UGs and PGs. So here, to respond to Steve's question earlier, so actually we will wish our students to get a hands-on and be familiarized with the different platforms, as these platforms are commonly used in teaching at SMU, and you will also be able to hear some student feedback in the following section. So in this initiative, the LPAs were engaged to design, develop, and deliver these workshops, and they had gone through a number of train-the-trainer, dry run, and debriefing sessions to learn and polish themselves up. So in total, the workshop series received 711 participants. So furthermore, the task force agreed that for a sustained, personalized, and self-directed learning experience, a research guide would benefit our students. Thus, the Online Learning is Different research guide was developed by the LPAs, offering peer-to-peer advice on the identified top 5 online learning hacks. Let me show some examples to you. So as you can see on the home page of the guide, it features the LPA Confessions video and the SMU Libraries video to inform a first impression about the libraries. And also featured is a learning roadmap of Term 1 for freshmen on how the 15 weeks ahead will look like. And the guide further covers the identified top 5 online learning hacks with personal tips and recommended resources contributed by the LPAs. And after we completed the Succeed in Online Learning workshop series, all workshop materials, including the slides and recordings, have been made available for students on the guide too. For example, one of the 3 sessions on the top 5 online learning hacks. So we posted both the video and the slides for students' self-directed learning. And also an EDM was sent out by the end of August to publicize the research guide. And thus far, the guide has been viewed 1,000 times.
It's very impressive. Well done.
Thank you, Prof. So further, the team thought that students might encounter real-life problems once term started, and they might want to seek for help from the LPAs. Thus, we organized a live chat with the LPAs in week 2. So what we did was we collected questions for students before the session, and then during the chat, we addressed those collected questions first. And then in the second half of the session, we answered any other questions participants had. So for example, here, actually in total, we collected 10 questions, as you can see from the screen. So there were questions about online learning tools and platforms, citations, and using library resources. Then during the chat, however, the attendance was not as good as we expected. Only 6 students joined the chat. Thus, we presume that maybe most of the students, they may just want to approach us when they need help. And of course, there are multiple ways they can always get in touch with us when they wish to, such as emails and chat services. And to ensure the quality and measure the impact, actually we did a post-workshop survey, and it recorded an overall 100% satisfaction rate, with 61% of the students rated the service as excellent, and the rest 39% rated as good. So here I selected some compliments from our students. One was saying, really love the approachable and friendly vibes from the LPAs. And this was another comment. I like the segment whereby the presenters taught us their experience. And there was one more saying, I like how the presenters were really detailed and cleared and introduced the tools to them. So the initiative demonstrated SMU Libraries' leadership in our digital literacy efforts as part of our own digital transformation and our overall contribution to student success and graduate learning outcomes. It further demonstrated libraries' capability and capacity to design, develop, and deliver mass learning programs together with our campus partners that can benefit the SMU community. So this can be seen from the two testimonials from our partners. So one partner from the IT department commented that I seriously think it's more effective to have students coaching students. The sharing of experience in using these tools and prof style of running their courses is valuable information for the freshmen. And another partner from the Center for Teaching Excellence commented on the research guide developed by the LPAs. They had done the sections using a light-hearted approach to introduce some serious topics, and the partner herself had an enjoyable time reading the work. Okay, so actually that has come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Now let's have some casual chats by the virtual file set.
Thank you very much, Enyan. That was really incredible to see the collaboration and participation of the students and how much this is beneficial to them and how much value there is in engaging, peers to actually work together. I think it's saying something about teamwork as well and preparing the professionals of the future. So it's a very excellent approach. As always, I have a question, but let's see what our audience thinks. And we have the first question coming from Jean. How do you recruit the LPAs?
Yes, actually, it was during last year's freshman orientation. I think the team reached out to the student leaders who are leading the library orientation. So reach out to them and see whether they have interest and also commitment to be our library peer advisors. So eventually we recruited the 7 LPAs. I hope that answered the question, Jean. Thank you for the question.
Okay, let's move on to Katrina's question. Thank you, Jean. Do the student peer advisors get paid or are they volunteers?
Yes, Katrina. Actually, the students, they get paid. So we follow the SMU peer helper payroll scheme. So I think they were paid like Singapore dollar, $10 per hour, around there.
It's very interesting. Any more questions? I was thinking about learning a little bit more around how they are trained and rewarded in a sense of their learning for their participation. And because obviously there are challenges on the basis of working remotely and following blended learning approaches these days. And how does this work, and how can you share some success stories to us? I know that these are probably several questions here, but just coming to my mind that there are many of us want to actually engage student ambassadors, and I'm thinking from my own experience that I always wanted to get my class representatives to do much more, for example, and to get to experiment with tools and technologies. But I found always that when I've created online areas for them, sandpits to experiment, but I always find that I needed a more structured approach in terms of doing that. So you're giving me lots of ideas, but so a few things around how they're training and are they rewarded, if you maybe wanted to tell us a bit more about those.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prof, for the question. So as I mentioned, actually we adopted the learn, immerse, and practice model to upskill and prepare our LPAs. So, and also I have introduced the 3 different stages. So normally for most of the services, we upskill and prepare them following the model. Yeah, but of course during these difficult times, almost everything move online. So actually for For example, for this new initiative we took on, all our meetings, trainer sessions, dry runs, and debriefings are actually all conducted on web conferencing platforms such as MS Teams, WebEx, and Zoom. So at the beginning stage, the LPAs they were not really acquainted with these tools, and sometimes they even haven't had never used it, had never used the tools, but because of the task, and then the process we have gone through, actually they have eventually become proficient with these tools. So I'm sure they are happy with this as they learn new things along the way. And also, I think another thing I would like to share is that when working with the students remotely, it's very important to keep them engaged and updated throughout the work with them, because due to the lack of face-to-face interactions and engagement, right, sometimes students, they may feel lost in the conversation, or they lose track of the work, or simply just feel demoralized. And sometimes it's not easy for us to find out. So what we did was we kept in touch with them through an informal channel. For our case, is Telegram. So which actually allow us to do regular personal check-ins with the LPAs, with some encouraging words sent to them. So when there was a lot of information to convey to them, right? So actually we always made sure that the details were listed clearly and comprehensively, and the timelines, deadlines were all provided in bold prominently to them. Yeah, and when the team reached a milestone, and even just a small one, we always show our acknowledgements and appreciations to students and keep them motivated. So I think this is a very important and critical part in our communication and in our co-work with the students to get them engaged and updated. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And I was thinking about this idea of knowledge as a gift that we discussed earlier, and it's very interesting to see, you know, how the approaches that you are following these days have to be adjusted according to the new era we are experiencing with COVID-19. But I think going through, as you say, training and communication with them even before they become formal advisors, and to prepare them for that requires the use of technology anyway. So by default, you know, by experimenting, trial and error, they learn. I'm assuming. So thank you very much
to
for
add,
that.
Prof, to add to what Chen Yan also mentioned, is when we were recruiting them, we also asked them, you know, how would you like to be rewarded? You know, is it going to be gratis, you know, free time or something like that? And they actually said they want money. So students are very direct. Also, what we do is we also, you know, recognize their hard work through the university librarians newsletter called Lip Connect, where she sends it out to the SMU community, that then again raise the profile of the LPAs, and we also have a dedicated section on the library webpage as well. So yes, Steve, students being students. So we did a bit of literature review, and we thought, are they, how can I say, do they have a utilitarian or altruistic approach versus do you want, you know, do you need money? So they said they want money.
That's an interesting one. So the gift of money versus the gift of knowledge, and less altruistic approach here, I'm afraid.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly. It's the basic needs, I guess. So thank you very, very much for these clarifications. I think we have another question from Jean. And Jean is asking, do you plan to recruit new LPAs as the current ones will eventually graduate?
Yes, I think we will.
Okay, so
we will keep the initiative going on.
Yes, I think that it's more value now, isn't there? I think I'm going to have a more close look into all of these ideas, because I'm really intrigued and I want to really include something in my own practice as well. So I want to massively thank you for these great insights into your work, and I'm sure that the audience as well feels the same, I hope. But we have another question coming from Nisa. So Nisa is asking, could you share the timeline from training to when the LPA is ready to support their peers? So the timeline, so how do you decide when they are ready, when the training has finished?
Thanks, Nisa, for the question. Actually, I think we don't have a fixed timeline for this. It really depends on project we are working on. Yeah, if the project has to be delivered within a short time frame, then we have to act faster. Yeah, to train the LPAs faster and go through all the dry runs, train the trainer dry runs to prepare them within a short time frame. Yeah, but I think for some of the initiatives that my colleagues are doing, for example, to train the LPAs to equip them with skills and knowledge to train students on, for example, APA citation, this kind of like, how do you say, daily work is not really like project based, but more like on and off work. So for this one, I think we have more flexible timeline and more sufficient time to prepare them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for this answer. I hope that answers Nisa's question well. Okay, thanks, Nisa. Anyone else would like to ask something or maybe share a bit of their own experience? Do you have something equivalent? Do you have students engaging with other students? Do you do that in a structured way? Just feel free to share any comments in the chat box. So as we're waiting, I really enjoyed the presentation today, and I think it gives us a great opportunity to discuss opportunities and challenges that we are all experiencing here in the higher education and further education community. So if that helps to, collaborate and communicate a bit more, this is really what the purpose of these sessions are. I don't see any more comments so far, so maybe you wanted to move on to the next slides. How do you feel about that, Jenyan?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prof. So Rajan, back to you.
Thank you, Chen Yan. So I'm mindful of the time, and I think we have about 10 minutes more before we wrap up today's session. And I wanted to end up today's presentation by putting forth 3 big questions which we can discuss, and also share your thoughts in the chat. So if you look at the chat, so these are my 3 big questions that we can have as part of our discussion. So having gone through our bite-sized workshop and the web page, etc., do you think that SMU Libraries programs, equip students with digital media and information literacy skills? Secondly, it's what's in the name? So is digital media and information literacy a jargon? Do students really need to know that they need digital literacy or they are information illiterate? Third, as CMIL practitioners, right, what skills do we need and where are we getting them from? So these are my provocative but yet critical thinking questions to end our discussion today. So, Prof, these are my big questions. Over to you.
Yes, big questions indeed. And at this point, if you feel the need to leave the session, because some people I know they have other commitments, please do so. And thank you very much for attending, because I see some people who have to go just now. But we are recording this event, and you'll be able to have access to it afterwards. Very great questions actually, Rajan, here, and questions that have been exploring for a long time, especially around definitions. I would say definitely that since there is usually some kind of competition about what is the right term to use when we're talking about media, information literacy, digital literacies, and so on. Jill is saying that we definitely need to get a better term for this all, and I know there are several publications that are dealing with all of these different definitions, and I usually go back to them to make sense of what they mean as well. I remember in one of my recent publications, I decided not to talk at all about definitions. So I think some of them can be jargon. David is saying that digital media information literacy is jargon, especially when used as an acronym. I know UNESCO is using the MIL term, media information literacy, and they do have this yearly celebration of activities around media and information literacy. I think we've got to really have some kind of common understanding, a common frameworks and ground to be able to make these conversations. If we could all agree, that would have been perfect. But I'm afraid in reality, the real world, there are different contested opinions and positions about what all of these mean. Depending on where you're coming from, obviously. So let's look at the chat. Jill is saying something, we need something that students can relate to better. Do you agree, Rajan, with that? Do we tell the students enough about what these things mean?
I think that's an interesting comment, Prof. And also, what you said, Jill. Recently, my boss, my university librarian, who's in the conversation, Bethany, highlighted, for example, there's a university in Australia, I think it's Curtin. They use the concept of 23 things. But these are all relating to digital literacy. So, we don't need to maybe say it as digital literacy, but in terms of, these are 23 things, but all related to digital literacy. So I think in that sense, using a term that is more relatable to the students themselves, because it's important to be part of the workflow of the students. If we're not in the workflow of the students, then, we will be forgotten.
Absolutely. We have the comments from the audience about the importance of research skills. Steve is saying that it's better to use research skills rather than a raft of literacies. And indeed, I think students would relate on the basis of what they learn at university if we use the term research. But at the same time, I'm thinking there are certain skills we want them to have as professionals. And looking at your workshop themes as well, those went beyond just research skills. I think it had to do with, even data analytics and other areas that are just beyond what students would do in the academia. So we've got to really think about what they do after they finish university. I think that's when it's becoming more complicated as well. So I'm looking at the chat area again. David, you're saying as practitioners, we need to demonstrate the skills in our own practice. That's a very good comment. We need to practice CPD to stay current and relevant. I think this is the case with a lot of these things. And we looked at even Zoom and, talked about Panopto, talked about even this we're using today, Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Obviously, we've got to keep abreast with developments and also what is happening in the digital world. All these social media tools are changing constantly. So absolutely, I would 100% agree with that comment, David. And Steve, you're saying it's also important to be in the workflow of the faculty. And indeed, we've seen this kind of excellent collaboration. And I was thinking about the model of collaboration between academics and the librarian. How do you work together? Maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit more about, is there any specific allocation, for example, of time that goes into the amount of time that academics give for these sessions? And how do you go about this partnership, which I think is a very key issue to talk about today in terms of what librarians do?
Thank you, Prof, for scaffolding this topic further. And I think, observing what Steve and Emma are saying, it's interesting that, it's nothing new. It's the stories we tell and who we tell it to. So I think, for our friends who are practitioners in this presentation today, it's about embedded librarianship, but it's also the engagement strategies we have to so-called build this collaboration with faculty as well. Because I mean, as liaison librarians, as research librarians, we are the first point of service and the touch point with the faculty. So it's your relationship and your partnership from being essentially transactional to move it to from transactional to relational, and that's where giving back to the library and of being of service to the library is something that we've built over the years. So faculty won't blink an eye to say, okay, cool, we'll do this and we can do it together as well. Of course, now and again we just need to juggle their schedules and the teaching schedules, but in general, we had more faculty stepping up to say, hey, I want to offer another course, an advanced course on R or GIS, etc. So it's again the goodwill and the partnerships that we build over time, and the research librarians' good work in building and creating this level of exchange.
Yes, absolutely. And Emma's comments touch upon certain areas from the things that you have just talked about. And Emma, you are finding the program very comprehensive. So well done, Rajan. I think that, obviously it is important to dedicate a lot of time to ensure that the program is effective and also to evaluate it properly, as we talked about earlier. So Emma says we tend to use the term academic skills for our modest collection of workshops. So academic skills, before we talked about research skills, and Emma is saying we need the same skills we want to pass on, and beyond those we tend to be self-taught through trial and practice. So again, going back to the previous comment on CPD and the importance of making sure that we are updating ourselves before we can deliver that knowledge to the students. So great questions. So Emma, you are also saying when you discuss reviewing your program, you use the terms capacity and capability. That is critical for getting such a comprehensive program right, and not something we always have available. So Rajan, would you like to comment on that?
Absolutely, Emma. I mean, it takes a long time to get where we are, but also as a learning organization, we invest a lot of time in, like what Steve mentioned earlier, on CPD and upskilling our staff as well. And I think what I've noticed recently, Emma, also is the tag team teaching, because, when you have two colleagues teaching the same topics, sometimes they can help each other. So I think it's also the capacity and capability is creating the safe environment. And I think, the nice article about, baptism by fire or trial by fire, etc., by, I think, Lagrauda. So, I mean, in this sense, it takes a while, but I'm, at SMU Libraries, we are very thankful that we have colleagues who enjoy teaching and enjoy, doing these workshops and sharing their knowledge with students. And I think similarly, what Jean is saying is also, she's jealous of all our professional staff. We got 4, and 2 are part-time. So I think, Joe, it's good to get creative and involve your student assistants to some extent. Otherwise, fatigue steps in.
Okay, so I think that's all we had today, I'm afraid, in terms of time. And thank you all for taking part. I thought it was really very thought-provoking presentation. And before we go, just for 10 seconds to say that this is what we're doing here in Mindsets, and we discuss opportunities and challenges in higher education around information, digital and media literacy. And I think that these days is even more important than ever to connect on that level and empower each other. So please join our community so that we can work together and discuss those issues and also share your work across to an international audience. At this point, we are going to stop our recording, and as we promised, we are going to give you a copy of that. So thank you very, very much for taking part, and it was lovely to meet you all.